My name is Christine Lind, and I'm the CEO for Medivir. Medivir found me 3 years ago to head business development for them, and I took over the CEO role just under 1 year ago. My background is primarily finance and business development, so not science, although I have spent my entire almost 20-year career in and around biotech and pharmaceutical companies. So I'm extremely pleased to be able to present the Medivir story to you today. Medivir is a drug development company that focuses on new pharmaceuticals, innovative pharmaceuticals for cancer patients. How do we do this? We use our world-class scientific experience that has been built over 30 years as a company operating. We have a broad and very balanced clinical pipeline, which has both multi-billion-dollar potential revenue drugs, known as blockbuster candidates, as well as orphan drug candidates. Smaller market opportunities, but also clearer regulatory pathways. We have an extremely strong commercial focus as a company. This is very important to us. Over the 30 years that we've operated, we've delivered more than 20 partnerships with large pharma companies and other biotech companies, and 2 products have made it from our labs all the way to market. This makes us a bit unique as a company, that we're an R&D focused company, but yet we have experience with products on market. Just a couple basic facts. We are listed on the NASDAQ Stockholm on the main board. So I'll talk briefly about our major strategies to be able to deliver what we deliver. The first one is to be able to leverage our scientific expertise in order to build our pipeline. How do we do this? This comes primarily from our internal science. I mentioned 30 years of operating as a company. We have 2 key areas that we spend time in. The first is protease inhibitors, and the second is in nucleoside prodrugs. These 2 areas have been built over a significant experience of the company in antivirals, but have a lot of applicability in cancer. Protease targets are some of the key targets in cancer that are responsible for ensuring that cancer cells live. What we're trying to make sure is that we can attack those protease targets and make sure that cancer cells die. The other area, nucleoside prodrugs, is a special technology that Medivir has that enables us to make nucleosides, which are chemotherapy agents, safer and more tolerable for patients, such that we can create both more effective and safer drugs at the same time for cancer. That's the first strategy, in-house discovery. Our second strategy is to develop these drugs as long as we can. And we spend our focus on areas of very high unmet need. So this is coupling together our scientific capabilities together with a very high market opportunity. What this has resulted in today is a strong and balanced development pipeline, which is focused around our areas of scientific expertise, regardless of whether the products have come from our in-house discovery or whether we've acquired them. And you can see here that we have drugs that span all the way from preclinical stages up through phase 3 ready compounds. You will note that there is one exception on this pipeline for osteoarthritis as opposed to cancer. We are very excited about this drug, and despite our focus on cancer, we have decided to spend time working on the development of this drug because of its market potential. I'll come back and talk about this program later. That was the second strategy. The third strategy is for us to partner. Collaborations can significantly enhance the value of all of our programs. We work both with academics, earlier in scientific development, as well as in clinical development, to ensure that we can harness the brightest minds around the world, the newest biology, the best innovation. We also work with industrial partners who have the capability to help us get our products through development, either in areas, therapeutic areas where we're not focused, or in areas where the power of a partner can help us get it all the way to market. That's the third strategy. Lastly, and very importantly, our people. Our competencies span all the way from discovery through our abilities to get regulatory approvals. This is reflected in the management team, which has a significant experience and track record of drug development, as well as in our 73 employees, the majority of which have PhDs. We're also very proud of our diversity, 18 nationalities, and a balanced gender split at the executive team, the board, and employee levels. I'll now talk a little bit about each of our clinical stage programs and leave your imagination for research. MIV-711 is a once-daily drug, so convenient, meant to attack osteoarthritis. This is an enormous, I can't underline how enormous it is, enormous market opportunity, blockbuster potential. This affects over 240 million people worldwide. And even in the US alone, 30 million adults have the disease. As we get older, and as we put on weight, it also means that we have more tendency for osteoarthritis. Today, there is no treatment available to treat this disease, which means that they focus only on symptom relief, helping ease your pain, and mostly physicians will tell you to exercise and lose weight. This doesn't work so well for people like me. Anyway, an enormous market potential. This disease also involves both bone and cartilage, and I'll tell you in a minute why that's important. MIV-711 has had, we've presented, incredible, unprecedented phase 2 data to the market for actual impact on disease modification after 6 months' time. MIV-711 comes from our in-house portfolio from the protease inhibitor side of our scientific expertise. This is a cathepsin K inhibitor. Cathepsin K is a protease. Why is that important? Because cathepsin K targets both bone and cartilage. We believe this is important both to be able to get impact on the joint itself in the bone and the cartilage, but also in the longer term to be able to have an impact on the clinical symptoms that bring patients to the doctor to begin with, pain and loss of function. In the phase 2 data, we've been able to show an incredible effect on the joint structure in just 6 months' time, statistically significant changes in the joint structure. And we're incredibly proud of this finding. We were able to present this data as a late breaker poster, which means that we were accepted as extremely new and interesting to the field at the American College of Rheumatology meeting last year. And the US FDA also granted the first of its kind fast track designation for this particular program at the end of last year. Won't tell you what we think of the program, I'll tell you what our KOLs think. This blue box in the bottom left is one of the doctors who was working on this program. The finding that MIV-711 slows the degenerative changes on both bone and cartilage in knees affected by osteoarthritis is an enormously exciting finding. So what comes next? Excuse me. We do have an extension study ongoing for this particular program. The data will read out in the first half of this year. And because it is not a cancer drug, and because it has an enormous market potential that a large pharma company will be needed to be able to capitalize on, we do have partnering discussions underway as well. And we plan to announce the partnership when it's concluded. That's just the first of our programs. So back to cancer. Remetinostat is a drug for an orphan disease. This is an orphan blood cancer, but don't let orphan disease let you think it doesn't have a significant market opportunity. This is a potential almost billion-dollar market for just early-stage patients. Early-stage patients have a very unique need in cancer. They don't die as quickly as other cancer patients do. And therefore, since they live relatively long, productive lives, what this means is that they need a drug that balances both efficacy and long-term tolerability. That drug does not currently exist on the market today. And patients circle around various treatments in hope of finding relief from both their symptoms, which is an extreme itch, as well as from the lesions, the cancer lesions themselves that are in their skin. In other words, patients and physicians are very much in need of new treatments for this disease. We've designed remetinostat, or remetinostat was designed by a doctor at Harvard, to act exactly in that way and only where needed. Only in the skin where the cancer is, not beyond that. But also, since it doesn't act beyond that, it means it limits its toxicity other places, so that you actually have the balance that we're looking for. Both effective in the skin, but not toxic. This has US orphan drug designation. I mentioned this is an orphan disease. And again, I'll leave you with the statement from our KOLs as opposed to from the company itself. Yoon Kim is the preeminent doctor at Stanford University Medical Center in California in the US. And her comment is, as a topical skin-specific HDAC inhibitor, remetinostat has the potential to be efficacious and have an improved safety profile compared to other available treatments. This is exactly what we're looking for. One other interesting thing about what she says is that this is an HDAC inhibitor. HDAC inhibitors are approved in later stage disease, but not earlier stage disease. The other unique feature of remetinostat is that it is topical. Again, acting only in the skin and not going beyond that. And what that means is that we've taken a drug that is approved and we know works on the disease earlier in patient treatment so that it can work there without having the toxicity that other drugs later in treatment might have. And we've shown this. Again, phase 2 data for this particular compound. We showed an incredible effect on the itch. This is called pruritus, the itch that patients have, which is their most debilitating side effect. In addition, a good efficacy on the lesions, the cancer itself, and again, balanced with a very tolerable profile with no systemic side effects. We're quite excited for the potential for this drug in early stage cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, and we plan to run the phase 3 clinical development in this disease. Timing. We're currently in discussions with the FDA for the phase 3 trial design. Once those are concluded, we will announce what the phase 3 trial design will be and begin the study. And again, one more KOL. The introduction of remetinostat to the market as a novel topical agent for the treatment of CTCL is likely to find broad application and lead to novel combinatorial approaches in CTCL. It's not just us that are excited about this drug, so are the doctors who might have a new option for their patients. Our second drug in development for cancer is called birinapant. This is an extremely unique drug, uniquely potent, and a novel target. That makes it extreme innovation. Many of you may know that the immune oncology market has significantly changed the profile of treatment for cancer patients. $8 billion, that's a big number. That's 2 drugs. Their global sales in just 1 year's time. This is immune oncology. And yet, many of the drugs, despite having effect in some patient populations, have no effect in other patient populations. 0% in a type of colorectal cancer, which is the predominant type. Therefore, the key trend right now is combination regimens with immuno-oncology drugs to be able to enhance benefit in patients that are not served. And that's exactly what we're doing with birinapant. We have a combination today with Keytruda. Keytruda is one of the market leaders, one of those 2 drugs in the $8 billion count. This comes from Merck, US Merck. And we've shown in preclinical studies that the combination of Merck's Keytruda together with birinapant has a significant effect on survival. This was done at 2 different academic centers in 2 different models, so we know that it's reproducible. This is the basis, or one of the bases, for our ongoing study right now in combination with Merck's Keytruda. We have a collaboration with Merck. What this means is that they give us Keytruda for free, which is great in and of itself, but they also participate with us on a joint development committee. What does this mean? Equal seats at the table, where they provide their input on immuno-oncology, on Keytruda, on drug development, and this is an enormous benefit as well, perhaps even outweighing the free Keytruda. At the same time, we get to retain full global rights to birinapant. That means that we have the option to sell it as we might wish at any point. We currently have the phase 1 portion of this study ongoing. That's the left side of the page in the dotted blue box. And once we've determined what the phase 2 dose will be, we'll start that program and report the data from the phase 1 portion of the study. This is in solid tumors in cancer patients. That data is expected around early second half this year. Third clinical program is called MIV-818. This one comes from our labs from the other side of the house, the nucleosides that I mentioned earlier. This is targeted at liver cancer. Medivir has become extremely good at liver diseases over the 30 years that we've worked in an area, and especially lately with our focus on hepatitis C. One of the drugs that was approved that I mentioned earlier, our 2 drugs to market, was blockbuster drug Olucio in partnership with J&J. This experience in hepatitis C has made us extremely good at liver targeting. Liver cancers, therefore, are a very natural place for us to take our nucleoside prodrug. Liver cancer is beneficial in 2 ways from a market standpoint. Not for the patient, certainly, but from a market opportunity. It is an orphan disease in Western markets, which may afford us the benefits of an orphan drug designation, but it is extremely common in Asia, not an orphan disease at all. Despite its orphan designation, it is one of the fastest growing and most deadly cancers in the US, and there is a lot of patient interest in this particular area. The complicating factor about liver cancers is that liver cancers are very different from each other. Tumor types are very different from each other. And that means that many of the targeted agents that were developed for something else and then taken over to liver cancer don't work so well. There's an extreme unmet need for this particular patient population as well. The drugs that are existing today provide an approximate 3-month survival benefit. Imagine having a diagnosis of liver cancer and being told that your best survival is 3 months. We're hoping to change that. Our nucleoside prodrug technology allows us to take a known nucleoside that was studied earlier, very long ago, in cancer patients, also in liver cancer patients, and was active. It worked against the tumors, but it couldn't get past the clinical stages because of its toxicity. And this is exactly what our nucleoside prodrug technology allows us to do. It allows us to take the original compound, change its structure, and make it safer. What we've shown in preclinical models so far, and we reported this data earlier this year and at the most recent liver cancer conferences, is a 100 times better delivery to the liver versus the injected troxacitabine alone. What does this mean? This means that we have the ability to reduce the exposure, the systemic exposure, the toxicities to the patient, and allow us to dose the key active drug at a higher level, which may mean increased efficacy as well. This is a great combination and exactly what we're looking for. There have been a significant amount of interest from the medical community in MIV-818 for liver cancer, and we are currently preparing the documentation to be able to allow us to start the phase 1 study in the second half of this year. This phase 1 study will be a little bit different than usual cancer phase 1 studies. Because we are so focused on liver cancers, this study will be in the very specific patient population that we are looking for. And that may allow us to develop this drug a bit faster to market as well. So that summarized all of our clinical compounds. We are a public company. We do have financials. At the end of the year, we had approximately 470 million SEK on the balance sheet. What does this mean? We also did an offering bringing in an additional 155 million SEK in gross proceeds to the company, and expect, as we said, to be able to out-license MIV-711 for osteoarthritis, which may bring us additional cash in the near term. This combined cash on balance sheet and the directed offering allows the company to operate for at least 18 months and potentially longer. And that is a very good runway for us to allow us to focus on all of the clinical drug candidates as well as our early stage research simultaneously. So why Medivir? I mentioned our track record of delivery. We've had an extremely productive research organization in the last few years. 2 products all the way from our labs to market, more than 20 global partnerships, and most of them repeat partners. So if they come back to us for their second and third partnership, we must be doing something right in the labs. We have a strong pipeline which bridges all the way from discovery through clinical stages with multiple upcoming catalysts. This is one of the benefits of having the broad pipeline that we have. We've reported a series of really groundbreaking events in 2017, and we expect to do the same in 2018 with new data and new study starts, and a good balance. And I also mentioned our near-term opportunity to partner in the form of MIV-711 for osteoarthritis. So with that, I will be happy to take questions.
Thank you. Har vi någon... Tack Kristin. Du är ganska ny som vd, du har suttit lite mindre än ett år. Vad skulle du säga är dina viktigaste framgångar på den tiden?
Apparently the mic is still not working, so I'll take the answer in English, even though the question was in
Of
Swedish.
course.
Most important for us going forward is to continue to execute on the strategy that we have built over the last few years. I mentioned that Medivir has been operating for 30 years. And it's actually 5 years ago that we took the decision to add oncology as a focus area. Little known fact, I think Medivir had over 20 therapeutic areas that it was working on 5 years ago in research. And what we wanted to bring to the company was an extreme focus on one particular therapeutic area to allow us to more successfully develop drugs to market. So this is a combination of scientific expertise. I came into the company 3 years ago to help transform the pipeline for this company, and we did that to execute on the focus of the strategy. And so going forward is to continue to execute on that strategy, the 3 important things that I mentioned, to continue to discover new drugs and research, to continue to develop the pipeline as aggressively as we can to try to move forward drugs as quickly to market as possible. And also, of course, to seek partners where they make good sense for us to be able to drive things faster and more strongly.
Thank you. Let's stay with the key roles here in the company. You recruited Mr. Erik Björk as a CFO recently, and also Christina Herder as an executive vice president within the development. Can you see further needs for recruitment in order to strengthen your competence?
Thank you. It's a good question. Certainly over the last 5 years, there's been a lot of work to strengthen the company's competencies, specifically in oncology. So that's meant certainly below the executive level, the ability to add in terms of cancer biology or other areas that allow us to truly attack that field with better competence. So that was one of the important things we've done over the last 5 years. That also included us promoting a chief medical officer up to the executive ranks in the last years, who has been very key in designing our clinical trials, and his experiences as a doctor and also as a cancer researcher, so a significant area of interest there. I think now with the latest 2 additions in our new CFO and our new head of business development, we've rounded out the experience of the management team from a research and development standpoint to also focus on commercial and financial strength. And those were the 2 areas that I wanted to be able to round out the management team with, and I believe that we have the team now for the future.
Okay. Then I would like to hear a little bit more about the core business, because you used to be an antivirals company, and now you made a really big shift towards focusing on cancer. This is not an overnight shift, I guess. Could you please explain something? How are you capable of suddenly becoming a cancer company? How did you make this shift in strategy and focus areas?
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you for that question as well. I mentioned that it's sort of taken us 5 years to build the competencies that we were really looking for to add to the balance. One of the rationales 5 years ago for us to add oncology as a capability area is because of its extremely good match with our scientific capabilities. So this may seem like a surprise. How can antivirals and cancer operate in the same places? I think there may be 2, one easy way to think about it, one less easy way to think about it. The easy way to think about it is that viruses get very good at evading the immune system. That's why they make you sick. So what we seek to do is to enhance how the immune system works and therefore be able to attack the viruses. Cancer cells do something very similar. They make your immune system think that it's itself. And so one of the things that we're looking to do, this is one of the ways that birinapant works, for example, is to be able to make the immune system recognize the cells as not self and to kill them as cancer cells as well. So this has some similarities in terms of the knowledge of the biology of cancer cells that does link with antivirals. The other area from a chemistry standpoint is that we've become extremely good. I mentioned certainly one of the areas as protease inhibitors. Proteases, which are proteins, are some of the cells that are very important in cancer cells evading the immune system or in other ways that they avoid being killed. And so this area of chemistry is one of the things that we've built up over the last 30 years as operating as a company. So we've become extremely good at making new drugs that go against protease targets. And proteases are very important in cancer research. So these are sort of two ways in which that background in antivirals is actually an extreme bonus for Medivir.
Okay. Well, having said all that, I mean, still you started your presentation not within the cancer, but you started with the MIV-711. Can you help us understand how important is this MIV-711? Since you've done the shift already, now you're back.
Again, a great question. I mentioned in the presentation when I started the MIV-711 presentation that even though this is not an oncology drug, it was extremely important. And then I think I paused and I said extremely one more time. So I'll say extremely a third time. This is an enormous value drug in our pipeline. I mentioned that we had 20 therapeutic areas 5 years ago when we said, no, we need to focus. And we're going to focus on oncology. This is the one project that we just couldn't bear to throw out, and that is because of its potential.
Okay.
So extremely.
Let's stay a little bit with the MIV-711. When would you say, when is it realistic to go on market?
This is a drug that will probably have quite a few more years in development.
Yeah.
Certainly drug development is a long process. I know it's hard sometimes to wait for data, which is one of the reasons why we like having a portfolio as opposed to just one drug in development. We don't have to wait for data all the time. But the drug development process here will probably take at least a few more years. This is why it is important for us and potentially a partner as well to drive drug development as fast as we possibly can.
Okay.
And to continue to invest in it because it is a long road and delays eat into patent time as well, and patents are extremely important to the value of the company.
And you've engaged partners in order to look for, you've engaged advisors in order to identify and start discussions with partners for finding license takers for MIV-711. Can you tell us something about how is the discussions going?
This is, I keep saying extremely important, and everyone wants to know how the partnering is going, so it's an extremely good question. We're not in the habit of announcing things before they're done. So
I'm not going to force you to
exactly,
say anything
exactly. So we won't
but
say anything until the partnership is actually signed, except to say that it is going well. We have an extreme amount of interest in this compound. And I mentioned perhaps the best marker of that perhaps is again the acceptance in the medical community to present as a late breaker poster at the American College of Rheumatology and the fast track designation, which underlines its importance in drug development to patients.
Okay, let's look at the big picture of your company. You have a partner project and you have internal projects. Can you see a little bit in the future? How will you weigh these different ways of working in the future?
Thank you, great question. We'll be looking to keep that balance. So what we're trying to balance certainly is both our ability to control our own destiny, which means taking drugs as long as we can to be able to drive them through the various stages of clinical development. The longer that we can take a drug, the further we can get a drug to market ourselves, the more value that Medivir gets to keep. And its shareholders, of course, get to keep as well. And that is important to us. Our goal is to be able to drive shareholder value. And one of the ways that we can do that is ensuring that we can get the most possible value for our drugs when we out-license them or sell them. At the same time, we recognize that we have a financial responsibility, and we want to ensure that we dilute our shareholders as little as possible while trying to maintain as much of the value for our shareholders as possible. And so our balance will be on partnering programs, especially where we believe we don't have the expertise to drive them all the way ourselves, and therefore also potentially to enable financial income streams to the company. So we get two things from that. One is our ability not to dilute our shareholders in the form of additional money into the company. And the second thing is to be able to get the power to be able to develop a program faster to market and therefore drive value faster as well.
Okay. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.